Going on YouTube? Andrew Miller, Tarik LaCour, and Shane Black from Hook'emHeadlines.com, the Hook'em Horn Show. We are coming back at y'all with post-game reaction, talking about Texas's big 28-point win, 49-21 over number 18 Oklahoma State in the Big 12 championship game today at AT&T Stadium. Just getting back home now. I was at the game earlier today, and it was it was a crazy atmosphere for a Big 12 championship game. That's the second time I've been to one at AT&T Stadium. I went to the one in 2021 between Oklahoma State and Baylor, and the environment for this one was I think much better. Big 12 announced today, crowd of over 83,000, set Big 12 championship game attendance record. But
Which, as soon as they said that, I thought, I really wish that conference championships were held at the winning team's stadium, because I'm like, so you're telling me there's like 30,000 less people at this game than at DKR? Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, AT&T Stadium's still a good venue for this sort of game, I think.
No, but they were just making it seem like this is such a huge crowd to be playing in front of, and I'm like,
oh yeah,
I was like, there's like, it's like DKR is significantly bigger than that.
Yeah, I think like probably 70% of the crowd was Texas fans. I thought it'd be tougher to distinguish the different orange like colors in the crowd, but you could tell it pretty easily. And a good portion still of Oklahoma State side of the stadium was in Texas orange. It was cool. After the game, you got Brett Yormark getting just booze rained down upon him when he took the mic to present the Big 12 championship trophy to Steve Sarkisian and the Longhorns. And you had the fans starting to chant SEC after the win. And even on my way out, there was a lot of fans chanting SEC, a lot of Texas fight. And just it was cool to see. Oklahoma State fans kind of started piling out around the end of the third quarter. So most of what was left was Texas fans.
That's when Ollie Gordon left too.
Yep. But about 5 minutes to go in the game or something like that. I get he gets fired up and everything, but like it's the same thing that you get whenever a player talks. It's like you don't keep your focus on the game, and especially when you're facing such a tough run defense, like he just kind of got humiliated, I think, in that game. Least rushing yards I think he's had all season long. I actually looked at this, so this was interesting, right? Oklahoma State has been held under 35 rushing yards twice in the modern era of college football, and under 2 yards per carry. Both times were against Texas in 2014 and today. Wow. They rushed for, I think it was 31 or 34 or somewhere in that ballpark rushing yards today, about 1.8, 1.9 yards per carry. Ollie Gordon, because he had 34 yards, I think, including sack adjusted yards. Oklahoma State had 31. It was thoroughly impressive win today. Texas was good on both sides of the ball. The defense, technically they gave up 21 points, but like 7 of those points were in garbage time. And then another 7 came after Oklahoma State was set up inside Texas's like 5 or 10 yard line after Ewers kind of threw a bad pick in an otherwise like spectacular record breaking day for Quinn Ewers. So Texas won by 28 points. This game probably was more of like a 42 or 49 point victory. It was much more lopsided than I think even the scoreboard showed.
But what are y'all just from 50?
Yeah. I mean, I think they could have gotten there if the offense did start to slow the pace in the second half. So after Worthy got hurt too, at that point, I think it was like, okay, it's time to put in the backups and just run out the clock. But I mean, this team was spectacular, especially in the last 2 weeks, beating Texas Tech and Oklahoma State by a combined, I think it's 78 points. They made a statement, and we'll talk about the playoff stuff in a little bit here, but Quinn Ewers, record-breaking day, 452 passing yards, 35 of 46 passing, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, tied the record for passing touchdowns in a Big 12 championship game, and set the record for passing yards easily. Almost 100 more than Sam Bradford had is the previous record holder for OU. I believe that was in 2008. I'll pass it over to y'all. How y'all feeling after this game?
Put us in the playoff. That's all I got to say. But no, I thought this game played out to my expectation. I think I predicted 41-17, right? something
sounds
like
right.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so they actually outscored what I thought. The goal this year was to win the Big 12 championship. We did so in spectacular fashion, and I think that Texas is on. If someone says Texas is back, I won't cringe at it now. um, but yeah, I thought it was a great day for Quinn Ewers. Pete Thamel before the game had put out an article that Ewers was looking likely to come back, and I think that's enormously exciting going into the SEC with a proven commodity rather than, as much as I want to see Arch Manning, I'm okay giving him another year of sitting, learning the offense, and then playing with his class as a junior when he takes over as a starter, when those guys are mature and things like that. I thought the offensive line, outside of one drive with Devon Campbell, I thought they played really well. Tavondre Sweat, Byron Murphy. What more needs to be said? These guys are just freaks of nature. It was wonderful to see Tavondre Sweat, the defensive player of the year, score more touchdowns than the offensive player of the year. That I don't think that's ever happened before.
Really?
I mean, the only, I guess, sad thing was Quinn getting a little shaken up, but he played well after that, so not too worried about that. And Xavier Worthy getting hurt. Hopefully, that's not a huge issue. Sark said at the end he's looking fine.
X-rays came back negative.
Yeah, so it's not a break. It's probably just a bad sprain at worst. But I guess the only sad thing about this, and another thing to think about is in 3 years, Sark has gone from 5-7 to 12-1, so he's building it right. And the only sad thing about this is if Texas does not get in the playoff, this is probably the last time we've seen Xavier Worthy, Devondre Sweat, Byron Murphy, Ryan Watts, just so many great people who have done some great things on the 40 acres. And it'd be sad to not let them get in a playoff game. Devondre Sweat has played so well. He deserves a playoff game on his own. He's just so good. And I hope that anyone who's on the team who's watching Devondre Sweat probably needs to think to themselves, look at what he did coming back that extra year. So I think he's really established a culture where coming back a year isn't a bad thing. If you're not ready, just come back. So I've rambled enough. Go ahead, Shane.
Yeah, I mean, just a complete performance. There was really never a doubt, and that's what we knew Texas needed to do on Saturday. And it was awesome to watch as someone who, I mean, the last time Texas won the Big 12 championship, I was in 5th grade in 2009. So, definitely a special one. And, some of those guys you were naming, Tarik, just for them to stick around, start in the Herman years, come in 2019, 2020 and stick it out, it feels really good for them to go out on top. Seeing some of the Tavondre Sweat recruit pictures are hilarious because he's put on 100 pounds since then. But yeah, it speaks to Sark, the culture he's built within this program, and everything's trending in the upward direction as we head to the SEC next year. I think a major hat tip is in line for Coach Sark for what he did in the first quarter. Quinn was phenomenal and he led the offense, but a lot of that was schemed up, especially in the first quarter from Sark. I'd be curious to see what the yak was on that, but guys were running wide open. We know how great Sark is with the screen game, especially the tight end screen game. Got JT Sanders involved early and often. The ball was spread around. I mean, Texas didn't even receive the first half kickoff, and in the first quarter, they ran 17 plays for over 200 yards and 21 points. That's complimentary football, the defense giving it back to them, and then the offense doing their thing. So shout out to Sark, wonderful game plan. That 4th down call on the little end around to JT was awesome. And I've been on here criticizing Adonai Mitchell all season for his blocking. Go back and watch that play. Number 5, best block of the season. He's all in. Like, it was one of those games where you watch with a smile on your face the whole time because everything's going right. Everyone's playing well. Everyone's contributing. I'm a big Mo Blackwell guy. He played well, breaking up that screen. He seems like just a perfect locker room guy for this team. And you can really tell that the team loves each other and that it just makes it that much sweeter. And obviously goes without saying, I think they're one of the best 4 teams in the country and would really love to see them get a shot in the college football playoff. It's out of our hands now, obviously, but this team is special. It was a special season overall.
Yeah, this team has accomplished a lot. I think they've already accomplished most of their goals. Not even double-digit wins, a dozen wins before the postseason. And to the point of the playoff, I'll get to that in a second. For a lot of these guys, I think that this was a special day for not all the seniors for sure. Quinn Ewers, to touch on what you said, Tarik, about him returning in the Thumel report. I thought it was interesting, the timing of everything with, it was reported like a month ago almost that from OB and Inside Texas that he was already leaning toward the decision to return to Texas next year. But I thought it was interesting that it sounds like a decision could come within the next week. And
that's what you would want. You don't need this hovering over the team. Just get it out of there one way or the other and then move on.
And he mentioned specifically that Ewers is trying to recruit top wideouts, specifically probably tight ends too, from the portal. And you got the portal window opening in 2 days for underclassmen. You've already seen a lot of portal movement within the last couple of weeks. Even from wideouts, I know Juice Wells from South Carolina, that portal entry ended up generating quite a bit of buzz. You got the Evan Stewart rumors out there. You're going to have a lot of big-time wideouts, I think, entering. And even from guys on the current team, I saw it today that Adonai Mitchell, I'm still going to put the chances at like 20%, but that he...
AD Mitchell's not coming back.
I don't think so, but I think
not a chance in the world.
That's fair. But I think the idea that some of these guys would consider, like that even they've budged a little bit in their decision-making is interesting. Alfred Collins could be coming back. I think that there's a good chance that David Benda comes back. Jake Majors. They're key guys that, at the beginning of the season we thought might be gone or might not have had as big of an impact on the team as they have had this season. Isaiah Nayor is another one that sounds like he's actually leaning toward returning, which I think could be really big news for the team. Getting
2 years removed from an ACL, that'll help.
Yeah. And, he's been part of a loaded boundary receiver spot this year where you got 3 guys with starting experience between Casey Kane, Isaiah Nayor, and Adonai Mitchell. I mean, we'll see. It's not set yet for Nayor to come back. But anyway, that's a separate topic. For Quinn Ewers, this sort of game is something that can elevate his draft stock in and of itself. So it's interesting with the timing, with everything.
Sorry to jump in. I was thinking the exact same thing. And Tark, I know you mentioned, or Andrew, that the decision hopefully comes within the next week. I think it's one of those things. He played so well today that coming into this game, he maybe was leaning towards coming back. But if Texas gets in the playoff and, by God, they win the thing and Quinn plays super well, like you just mentioned, Andrew, he could elevate his draft stock to where he's going to be a shoo-in first rounder and then could be gone. So it's almost like a catch-22 victim of your own success type thing. Because obviously anyone who doesn't want Quinn back for another year is crazy, regardless of, the art situation and things behind.
I would lean towards, even if he won it all, if you were already thinking that you should be coming back, then I think you do that. One reason is because, and this is independent of that, very good data that if you have more than 30 starts in college, you do much better in the pros. So think of all the great quarterbacks in the pros, Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, you just keep going down the list, Jalen Hurts, all those guys had over 30 starts, and it makes a big difference when they go to the NFL. And I think also, Quinn would be probably the top quarterback coming out in the next draft, but he's maybe 5th or 6th in this draft. So something big. That's not to say that Quinn couldn't go and do well in the NFL. I think he could with the right situation. Like if he got somehow to Sean McVay and the Rams, I think he would do well. But overall, I think you're better off him staying another year. But everyone else, Xavier Worthy, Adonai Mitchell, I think they got to go. Got to move on. Although I think there's a chance. I'd love to see Jatavian Sanders come back for one more year. When that guy's healthy, oh my goodness, he's good.
Even when he's not.
That's a very fair point. I think it just speaks to the culture that Sark's built. Obviously, NIL plays a huge factor as well. But for these guys to even consider coming back, it speaks volumes to how much they love being in Austin and playing for Sark. And I do think part of it could be, it feels real good to win a championship, but you sit back a week later and you think about it. And the best move for a lot of these guys is probably to move on. So, I wouldn't listeners get too excited that all these guys are coming back. But the fact that it's even being discussed is pretty, a hat tip once again to Sark and the program he's built.
It is. And I mean, I guess this is a relevant conversation too, because like I said, you do have the portal window opening in like 2 days, conference championship week pass. Now you're probably going to see some Texas players. I'm imagining only a handful, but you are going to see some Texas players probably entering the portal here in the next few days.
Just the way it goes now.
It is. But I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of key guys. I think most of the players that you would see were probably fighting for playing time either way. So back to, talking about some of the guys that stood out today, Quinn Ewers, I mentioned this, we talked about it this week. I was a little critical of him for the lack of ability for him to go through progressions in the pocket against Texas Tech. And really, since he's returned from injury, I thought he would I know a lot of the big plays that Texas had today in the passing game were pretty easy throws in the sense that guys were just wide open. Oklahoma State was not effective covering Texas today, but there were, I can think of probably a half dozen throws off the top of my head where Ewers was under some duress in the pocket and went through 2 or 3 progressions to find his guy.
That throw on third down to Adonai Mitchell. Wow.
Are you talking about the one in the red zone that put Texas in the red zone?
Yeah, the one it was third and 10, and he let it go while before Adonai even really broke off in his route, but he threw it perfect. I was like,
oh, different. Yeah.
Okay. That's an NFL throw. That anticipation.
And yeah, I think there were a lot of instances of that today. I can think of 2 or 3 throws to Jatavian Sanders that Jatavian Sanders was his second or third read. And I think both. So weren't there almost plays on the same drive, explosive plays to Jordan Whittington? One that was, I do remember that was his third read to Jay Witt that was called back on a holding call on Christian Jones. And then what was it? A few plays later, he comes back and hits Jordan Whittington on another nice read on a 17-yard ball.
Yep.
Where, he had to step up in the pocket a little bit. It might have only been about 2 steps up before he made that throw. But and then, Worthy, what he was able to do in space today. I think Adonai Mitchell, his body control and his adjustments he was able to make on a few catches today was really spectacular. And just his route running, I think on the first explosive play between him and Quinn Ewers, he just burned the Oklahoma State DB in a little stop and go route down the boundary. And so, yes, I was critical of Ewers, and I think rightly so. Had some bad throws and against I think TCU in the second half, at times against Iowa State, and then definitely against Texas Tech. Today, he was pretty much spotless outside of that one kind of bad pick to Nicholas Martin. But fortunately for Texas, that didn't wind up mattering a ton because they ended up pulling away later in the second quarter and in the third quarter. So running back room, that was the last thing I was going to say. For them, I think that this running back room is really exciting for next year. I thought Jaden Blue had some nice plays. Keelan Robinson, didn't he finish? I think it was 4 carries for 75 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
He had more rushing yards on his last touchdown than Ollie Gordon had the entire game.
I thought his last rush was that 11-yard score.
No, I guess no, that was his first one.
Yeah, the 57-yarder. That was his ability to just pull away and to
he's done that before. He did that against West Virginia 2 years ago when he was the only running back left. And it's just, the problem is there's just so much crowd in that room. But I think given the Jonathan Brooks came out, and I love that at the end, I think that was basically his way of saying, I won't be back next year, so I want to be on the field one last time.
Mm.
Yeah.
I will say, I think the running back room going forward, especially if you can keep Blue, and so you got Baxter and Blue paired with Gibson coming in as a true freshman, Savion Red, Trey Wisner.
Gibson stays committed.
Assuming Gibson stays committed. But yeah, I mean, like Baxter and Blue only averaged 3.3 yards per carry. The Horns really weren't doing much on the ground until that Keelan Robinson 57-yard touchdown run. They finished 5 yards per carry, but if you take out that long TD, it's not that great. I don't think it was lack of like the offensive line played well. And I don't know what the issue was. I feel like Oklahoma State was getting their fair share of like shoestring tackles. There was a couple runs where Jaden Blue was one guy away from breaking it for a long touchdown. So I'm not super worried about that, but it's not like Texas was super dominant in the running game today.
And Oklahoma State wasn't selling out to stop the run, but they were playing heavy boxes pretty often. The very nature of Oklahoma State's defense, they give up a lot of explosive plays, or they have successful stops. That tends to be most of their plays on defense. And so, their safeties are good in space, but they're not good at preventing explosive plays. And so you kind of saw that again with even their corners. I think Corey Black and Cam Smith are decent against the run, but yeah, I mean, once guys got out in space in the passing game, or even so, once they saw some daylight on the ground, you got a guy like Keelan Robinson can hit that hole and really turn on the burners. But I mean, the running back contributed in the receiving game as well, because Baxter and Blue both had over 30 receiving yards. Blue had that nice one-handed catch. I believe that was in the second half.
That was clutch. Yeah.
Yeah. He's got good hands. He's got really good hands. But anyway, okay, so let's kind of wrap this up here. So, we got Alabama up 3 points right now on Georgia. Let's round this up by saying what we think Texas can do to get in the playoff, outside of the obvious of Louisville beating Florida State tonight. If Florida State beats Louisville, if Michigan, as we all expect, takes care of business against Iowa, if Alabama beats Georgia by one score, I'm of the mindset that Texas should be in, just because.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Unless Bama beats Georgia by 20, I think Texas should be in over Bama.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
That's because, okay, you're playing Georgia on a neutral site. That's one thing. Whereas Texas went to Alabama and beat them by double digits in their own house, which hadn't been done before. And Texas could have won by more. They just slowed down the last 8 minutes. So, I mean, if you have you have identical record, conference champions, so what you decided is the head-to-head. That's my
yeah.
reason.
And by the time people watching this, it'll already kind of be decided. But yeah, if Louisville wins, obviously, like you said, Texas is going to be in there. And if Louisville loses, then you need Alabama to win, because if it goes chalk with the top four, you already had Washington win. If Michigan, Georgia, and FSU win, I'm one of the few, and to maybe take my tinfoil hat off, but I think if FSU wins by a field goal late against Louisville, I'm not completely sold that I think they will more than likely be in the playoff. I'm not completely sold. And I think especially if Alabama and Texas are both 12-1, I could see them taking the 3 and 4 spot and a 13-0 FSU being number 5. There's really the thing is here,
and this is yes, Georgia's a very, very good football team. If Alabama wins, this would be the first win over a number 1 team. And I think that's what's giving Alabama an argument right now. It would be the first victory for any team over a number 1 team this season. Now, Georgia is banged up. I think they've been the most banged up they've been all season here in the last few weeks. Yes, Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey are playing. They are not even close to 100%. And Georgia also has about 8 or 10 guys elsewhere in the 2 deep that are either banged up or out. Alabama has Jason McClellan out. I'll give them that. Ja'Cory Brooks, I think, is out too. If not, he's banged up.
That scares me a little bit in the playoff that they have Bowers and we're without Derek Williams, because you're really going to need safety help.
At least for the first half.
Alabama just went up 10 with 6 minutes left. For what it's worth. Obviously, people won't be seeing this live, but
that's all right.
But Derek Williams, that's a good point though, Tark. No offense, no offense to
That was such a BS call.
Yeah, it was.
I don't know. I mean, it was kind of letter of the law targeting, honestly. But if it was a boneheaded play, and I mean, no offense to Jonte Cook, but like when they said number 2, I like went back to the replay. I was like kind of hoping it was Jonte. Because I mean, like, no offense, and we might really need Jonte now if X is actually can't go. But yeah, Derek Williams.
I think if you give Xavier Worthy like a month, he'll.
Yeah.
Oh, he'll be fine in a month.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah.
Heck, he'll be fine by next week. What that guy just he's just built differently. When he trucked that guy into the end zone and was standing up, I was like,
Oh, yeah.
Worthy probably weighs as much as I do. So that was very impressive. And I'm sure, and we hadn't talked about this yet, but Kobe Black, I think you know where you need to go now. I mean, I think this has to end it, right?
I think he was always going to Texas, and I think he still is. It just, yeah.
No, he and his brother can come together now.
What? Yeah. I guess. I mean, I think that there's a decent chance of that happening.
His brother got knocked out early in the game, but he's really good. You could put him at star or at safety somewhere.
Yes, but keep locked in on the channel and on the site too, because I think we'll have a lot of good stuff coming up here. Anyway, for Andrew Miller, Tarik LaCour, Shane Black, Hook'emHeadlines.com, Hook'em Horn Show. That's pretty much it. Hook'em.
Hook'em. You are
Hook'em.
champs.
Champions, yes.